Welcome everybody. We are back for Kagurabachi Chapter 96, titled Urgency. This week we were blessed with another awesome color page from Hokuzono. It has a whole slew of characters that some are from much further back and then going, up to even more recent. But we have Chihiro in the middle, we have Hirohiko in here, we have Soya and Kiora Sazanami. We have, of course, our first major antagonist, Genichi Sojo. We even have Daruma, the bomb guy, our first kind of sorcerer villain that popped in the story. And I just want to apologize also for a moment if I sniffling a little bit. I'm either fighting a cold or just have really bad allergies and trying to keep it under control because I don't want to drive anybody insane. But I just wanted to let you know if I can't help it, I truly apologize. But I just was so excited to get this video out that I didn't want to, wait and just see when my allergies would eventually go away. So here we are, and I'm gonna try to keep it under control. But awesome color page from Hokuzono here. I like how he even threw in the two twin brother sorcerers that worked for Sojo, the guys with the kind of demon Oni masks, who literally did nothing. They did nothing, and then Chihiro just beheaded, I believe, both of them in one shot. So it's just funny that here they are in the center of a big color spread that is I don't know, 70, maybe even more than 70 chapters after they have been taken out of the story. So I just thought that was kind of funny. But let's just dive right into chapter 96. The chapter opens up with Ichiki speaking to who appears to just be a Kamunabi attendant, and he tells this attendant to summon Shiba and Hiyuki to headquarters, which that is just super exciting. I've been wanting, obviously, Shiba. He is one of my big question marks in the story, and I think he is exceptionally powerful, and I think we've still only to this day seen him, we haven't seen him get serious, because we came to learn through the situation at the Kamunabi that things like teleportation that the Masumi, the ninja unit, do, that type of stuff is basic sorcery that anyone technically can use. Now, can they use it as proficiently? That the proficiency is what varies, and clearly Shiba is exceptionally proficient and probably the best we've seen when it comes to teleportation sorcery, but that more than likely is not even Shiba's own innate sorcery. So on top of being able to use his crazy teleportation, he probably has something else in store for us. So anytime I get mention of Shiba, and I mean, on top of it, you had Yura way back when, I think it was just before or just after the sword bearer assassination arc started. He basically in a chapter just was totally gassing up Shiba. So I'm super excited to get more of Shiba in the future. And then in the same vein, Hiyuki. Hiyuki was stated so long ago that she was the Kamunabi's most powerful fighter. And that obviously includes people like Azumi, who we see in this chapter, and we've seen, a little bit in the story just how insanely powerful Azumi is. So Hiyuki is just someone that I've been waiting for, especially with the fact that she has power on the level of an enchanted blade with Flamebone. And we've only got to see like partial releases of Flamebone. Because so far she's basically only been using like the fist of it. We've seen her use like the rib cage to try to like capture Chihiro. That was the only time we've seen that. And we know she was about to use the spinal column for Flamebone. And that made, I think his name is Taifuku, the sumo guy who's like always with her partner, when he saw or heard her say that she was going to bring out the spinal column, he was like, oh, she's trying to kill this guy for real. So there's just a lot left in the tank for Hiyuki for her to show. So both of these guys coming back to headquarters, one, it makes sense from a military strength perspective, because Ichiki even goes to explain that he says that they can get by with minimal security for the other sword bearers because apparently right now Shiba and Hiyuki must be guarding the other two sword bearers. So the sushi master one with the mustache and then the other female sword bearer, they must be protecting them. But Ichiki basically just says, well, if the Hishaku manage in this infiltration, if they manage to kill the swordmaster, those other sword bearers are going to die anyways because of the way the eternal contracts with all of the enchanted blade works and how they center on the Shinichi and that eternal contract. So it doesn't matter anyways because they need to stop them no matter what in the headquarters right now to prevent them from killing the swordmaster. So after he finishes saying this, there's like a rumble, a crackle, and we get multiple people's like reactions to sensing some sort of presence. And then we just get this awesome panel of the Tobimune and the Enten. So obviously that's Samura and Chihiro. And we saw, I think it was just a few chapters ago, at the very end of a chapter, we saw crow feathers, which we obviously know is tied to Tobimune's like teleportation ability or like swapping ability. So they were obviously on their way from that hotel that they were fighting at. And it seems like they have finally made their way back to headquarters. Now, in this moment, Uraha is like, Chihiro, you did it. Like, they're nearby and they're together, meaning they're not fighting right now. And he was actually able to bring Samura back over to their side. So we have Azumi basically saying like they're gonna hold off Yura right now because he intends to kill the Swordmaster. So they need to make sure that Yura cannot move freely, and with Tobimune and Enten, so Chihiro and Samura actually arriving, they're going to be there soon. So they need to hold Yura off here, keep him right here, right now. And in this moment, we have Uraha analyzing the power that they just saw Yura exhibit. And he was saying, so this is the Shinichi's power. This is where like the centipede thing came from. And I do find this dialogue from Uraha a little interesting because, I mean, we saw in the flashback that the 5 other enchanted blade wielders teamed up to take down the Swordmaster, and that would be Uraha included with the Kumayuri. And the Shinichi, or the Magatsumi, he must have seen the Swordmaster utilize the blade in combat all the time. Or at least during that war, probably repetitively. So, and they fought him personally. So it's not just seeing it used on the enemy from the island of Shikoku, it's also against them. They all had to fight him after the events of the malediction. So it's like, wouldn't he have seen Centipede firsthand along with Dragonfly and Spider? Because those are the three abilities we've seen so far from the Shinichi, utilized by Kyora all the way back during the Rakuzaichi. Obviously just a very, very small sliver of the abilities, but shouldn't Uraha have already seen Centipede, like, a lot? So shouldn't he already kind of be aware? But he's analyzing it like, he's saying, so that was the Shinichi's power. It just seems like he's seeing it for the first time. But to me, that just doesn't make a lot of sense unless, because it's only a small fraction of the power, it doesn't actually operate the same as when the Swordmaster was wielding it at like its full potential and capacity. That's kind of the only thing I could think of. You guys, anybody let me know down below what you kind of thought about Uraha's dialogue regarding the powers of the Shinichi here in Centipede. And maybe I'm just missing something very obvious. But right in this moment, we have Uraha and Natsuki, like, they call up to Azumi, and Azumi is just like, yeah, I got it. And Uraha's like, Natsuki, and he's like, I know, I'm not dumb. So they're having like this conversation without really talking about it. So this is where them being like allies and being familiar with each other, they're able to communicate without actually using explicit words. And it doesn't become clear what they were actually talking about in this panel, because I remember reading it the first time through, and when I read this, I'm like, what are they talking about? They're just saying stuff, but it doesn't really make any sense. But it comes to make sense later on in the chapter. But this is where we actually see Azumi. We see that like energy build up between his fingers, which we've seen before, but never actually seen anything come from it afterwards. But this is where Azumi actually says coin, and he flicks, and out of that energy we have two different coins appear in the air. And Yura thinks to himself, like, this is sorcery, obviously, but he's like, are we gambling? I like it. And Azumi is just, it's a little bit of banter between the two. This is his first time meeting him, but he's like, I'm not surprised that Yura likes a gamble. But Azumi's like, it's nothing that risky. But he's thinking to himself, like, that's Yura, the Hishaku's leader. He was also at the Rakuzaichi, and he is the man behind Rokuhira's death. And we get to see those panels, because we've got a few of these so far from Azumi during this infiltration, where his eyes just look they almost look creepy. It's not even like locked in. It's like this creepy, empty, just, I don't know really the best word to describe it, but it is actually very unsettling. But I think it just comes from his deep emotions that he feels towards the Hishaku in regards to Rokuhira's death. But all three of them spring into action against Yura. They're all going in, surrounding him, and then, of course, this is where we cut away. And we cut back to Ichiki. He's thinking about the fact that he also sensed the presence of the Tobemune and the Enten. And so, like, why aren't they coming down right away to them? Because he thinks that with Tobemune's powers, with Crow, that they should be able to teleport right to them, which is absolutely the truth. But he asks the attendant guy, like, hey, did you contact them? And the guy's like, I can't get through. So Ichiki surmises, like, is it a force field? Like, and he's now talking to Kasen again. And he's like, you did something. Amidst the confusion, or Kasen's like, well, yeah, amongst the confusion, my comrades did good work. So now we're cut off from the outside. And Ichiki has some more inner monologue thinking about, like, did they modify it to prevent the N10 and the Tobimune from entering? But he thinks, like, being able to exclude, with this barrier, being able to exclude 2 enchanted blades doesn't sound possible, because the original settings for this barrier around the headquarters is that it would repel all sorcerers who are not Kamunabi. And so he thinks that to apply that to the N10 and the Tobimune, they'd have to focus its entire capacity against those 2 blades. So you'd be a massive trade-off. Instead of being able to reject all sorts of people, now they set it basically to just only reject the N10 and the Tobimune, which this is very reminiscent of all the way, if you've ever read Jujutsu Kaisen, when Hanami and the curse users infiltrate the sister school exchange event, and they create the barrier that specifically only rejects Gojo, and everybody else can go through it. That's how they made the trade-off to specifically exclude him. It's very, very similar here where, yeah, forget everybody else. We don't care. We just want to prevent the Tobimune and the N10 from coming through, because that's what would really mess up their plans. And Ichiki's like, well, even if you were able to do that, it would not take long for Samura and their group to break through it, like a few minutes at most. So he's like, basically everything hinges on a few minutes, because once those 2 get through, they basically, the Hishaku, they're done for, because that's 2 enchanted blades showing up. And on their side, on the Hishaku side, they only have now Yura, who's utilizing a small fraction of an enchanted blade's power. So having 2 actual blades show up, especially Samura himself being a full-on master, not only in his swordsmanship with the white purity style, but also his complete mastery of the sorcery of his enchanted blade and its true realm. So that would be a massive problem for the Hishaku. But we cut back, so we're kind of juxtaposing between Kasen talking and what's going on with the fight between our group of 3 and Yura. And, you know, they're kind of jumping him, but then he uses Centipede again. And Kasen is just saying that the sorcerers here are pretty much defenseless, and that he knows, and Ichiki should know this, because with these Shinichi's powers, a few minutes is plenty of time to wreak total obliteration. And we get to see basically that Uraha and Natsuki were just blown back into like the bookshelves. They're kind of slumped over, not moving. And Kasen continues on that, like, you witnessed it at the Rakuzaichi, even the N10 and Flamebone together could barely stand up to it. And he's referring to when Kyora Sazanami was utilizing the Shinichi against Chihiro and Hiyuki. Now, this is where, while yes, what he's saying is true, the Shinichi clearly is just the most powerful. I apologize. I just have to wipe my nose real fast. Thank you. Sorry. The Shinichi is clearly the most powerful of the enchanted blades, but at that time, Hiyuki was still only utilizing the fist of the flame bone, so not the full release of its power. And at that time, Chihiro still had not mastered any sword, sword styles, and still has a lot of growth with the N10 and its true realm. So I get what he's saying here, but there's also asterisks on the N10 and the flame bone being used together. Now, the next point that he makes is completely true, because he says that sorcerers bearing conventional weapons have no hope of even buying time, which he says this, and while most of the time I'm sure that statement would hold true regardless, but we cut to the next page and we still have Azumi standing right there, right behind Yura. He did not get blown back by Centipede. And Yura even thinks to himself, he resisted Centipede? No. No. And Uraha's thinking to himself that Centipede attacks all around, but there is a gap where the force is weaker, and that is behind the wielder. And he found that out because the pillars that were in the library from the previous use of Centipede all got destroyed, but not the one directly behind Yura. So that's what they wanted to exploit here, was that they figured that out. And similarly to how Cloud Gougers may, the lightning attack, there's a recovery period for Centipede as well. So May had to be charged up. Once it was discharged, there was a time constraint where they had to wait. Sojo had to wait before he could utilize the next May. And apparently the same thing applies to the Centipede ability. Now, this is where Azumi thinks to himself that Uraha and Natsuki understood instantly, so they used themselves as bait so that he could get shelter behind Yura. Now, this is where I was talking about earlier in the chapter, where they have their little conversation before the fight starts. That's what they were basically communicating without actually explicitly stating it. So it's really impressive on all their parts that they were all able to kind of just be up to speed and understand it with each other and be able to execute then without, any hesitation or confusion. And Azumi thinks to himself that Chihiro and Samura still haven't arrived, so he surmises that something must be keeping them out, so it doesn't matter because his job is the same, and it is to stall and buy time. And Yura even thinks of that, oh, you're buying time. And then Yura, because Azumi tries to sneak up from behind him with his super speed, and Yura even thinks to himself, he's even faster now. Could it be a physical augmentation spell like Uraha's? But before we get an answer to that, Yura goes to counter and use another ability of the Shinichi, which is Butterfly. And this actually does catch Azumi, and it gets both of his hands. And it seems to break them, or it's almost like a decaying type of ability. It's really kind of hard to tell because there's blood, there's some cracking noises, and we just truly do not understand the powers of the Shinichi yet. They've been sort of utilized, but they've always been restricted. This is still even a restricted usage, which is crazy to think. So I think of course, the Shinichi has so much more to show, but I think basically all of the enchanted blades, we still have not seen their full capabilities, which just excites me greatly. But Yura is confident after catching Azumi in that counterattack, and he basically just tells him not to bother because without an enchanted blade, like you don't stand a chance. But as he says that, then he notices that there are multiple of those coins that Azumi created at the beginning of the fight. There's multiple of them surrounding him. And then this is where we get some backstory that I honestly had no idea that this was a thing, but apparently there is health benefits. It's a well-known home remedy where if you take two different metals that have two different ionization characteristics, and you put them near each other, they do produce a faint electrical current, and it regulates the electrical currents within the body to relieve muscle tension and pain. And apparently, in Azumi's family lineage, they had a clinic where the technique was popularized by one of Azumi's relatives. And the rumor has it that he was able to utilize the intrinsic electrical currents in the coins to cure even like serious illnesses. But the true secret of this treatment was that it was sorcery passed down through the Azumi lineage over the generations. But this is actually where we get a more closer look and a peek into Azumi's past, because it says that until a certain hot-blooded only son had adapted the family sorcery for combat. So clearly they had, up until this point, had only been utilizing it for medicine, with quotation marks, because it was medicine / sorcery. They were using it, that was how they ran their clinic, and that's how they probably like established their wealth and their place, like within the community. And then we had Azumi, clearly he inherited this type of sorcery, and he wanted to know how he could use it for combat. And that made this person, his dad, I'm assuming, very unhappy, because his dad thinks that he basically ruined the sorcery and their heritage, and he basically kicks him out and tells him to get out, which is really sad, because Azumi, at least everything we've seen so far, he is a very good person, and he clearly wants to do things to help out, help others, and that's like his whole role in the Kamunabi. And he participated in the Seitei War and had been quite renowned out there. And the Seitei War was like the largest event in Kagurabachi like history. So it's just really sad to see a father or a relative just shun someone in their family just because they're taking a different path. So basically this then breaks down how Azumi does utilize this sorcery for combat. So one aspect of the abilities is that he could use the power of the coins to accelerate the user's blood circulation, and it enhances their physical performance. So he's basically doping himself. I am so sorry. Whew. My apologies. So he's basically doping. He's doping himself up, which is really cool. I mean, it makes complete sense. So he can use that in conjunction with reinforcing his body with spirit energy. to augment. So that's why he's so absurdly fast. And when he activates the coin, he becomes even quicker. All of his physical stats, and I mean that's how he's just able to just absolutely obliterate people with just the hands, guys. Like, that's all it is. It's awesome. But the other ability of it is that you can intensely stimulate the muscle fibers of the opponent. And this is where we see all of these coins surrounding Yura, and it just looks like it's basically shocking Yura, but what it's doing is it's rapidly vibrating his muscle fibers, basically rupturing and tearing them and just gyrating them so fast that they're getting all shredded. Like his whole body, it's like reverberations through it. And I mean, you got blood splattering everywhere. Azumi's looking like a boss, and Yura thinks to himself that Azumi was bluffing, that he was pretending to be unarmed, and that sorcery is actually Azumi's true strength. And we get to see Azumi's arm from the dragonfly ability is just, I mean, it's just missing like chunks completely out of it. It honestly looks terrible, but Azumi says, "Don't worry, actually my real strength is my fists." And he just clenches his destroyed fists and arms, and he just absolutely rocks Yura right in the side. If I'm not mistaken, that's either a kidney or a liver shot, which is exceptionally painful. And this is coming from a physically augmented Azumi. And Yura thinks, like, with a broken arm, like he chose to strike with his broken arm. Countering in that situation just takes so much physical strength. I love to see it. Because like I said in the last chapter, I'm a bit worried for Azumi, but I also said that I have faith in him. And I mean, he's living it up to that faith that I had in him. He's going up against the power of an enchanted blade, not a full power, obviously, but the Shinuchi in any capacity is insane to compete with. So Azumi is really proving himself to be an exceptional sorcerer, and I'm honestly just liking the character even more and more. And he just goes on to continue to end the chapter out. He taunts Yura, saying, "You good with this, chilling out here with us for so long?" Basically saying, like, yeah, you knew we're trying to stall you for time, and it's working. We are stalling you. Like, so are you good with this? Just hanging out with us this whole time? Because clearly they also know that him wielding the power of the Shinuchi is also temporary. And now they have Samura and Chihiro arriving as well. So this was a great chapter. I was glad to see that while it wasn't completely finished art-wise, it seemed to have a higher percentage completed compared to last chapter. So that is at least good. I really hope Hokuzono does take a break here soon, but I loved this chapter. I still just have kind of a little pit in my stomach for going forward, because it's the give and take, you know? Things start to feel like they're going better, then something bad's gonna happen. I mean, we haven't checked in with the other members of the Hishaku that are running amok in the facility right now. We didn't see Hokuto in this chapter at all. We know he's probably about to lock in here to do his job. So there's just so much here at play. And now Chihiro and Samura, they can't even get in currently. So I don't even want to like try to bank on them showing up, because realistically a lot can happen in a few minutes in Kagurabachi, like it always does. So that's where I'm going to end it. Again, if you made it this far, I greatly appreciate you. And I just apologize again for the sniffling and having to blow my nose. It's such a pain in the butt, but I hope you can, forgive me and make it past it. But like I said, I appreciate you regardless. And I will, well, first of all, I hope you guys are having a great day or night wherever you are. And honestly, I just can't wait to get the next chapter. So I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.